Welcome to Z Sisters Pickleball. I'm Ann Z, and I'm here alongside my brother Mike, who's visiting from Southern Cal. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Ann. Don't we need to change the name for today to Brothers too?
The Z Siblings
All right.
Pickleball. There we go. That works for me.
Z Sisters and Brother Pickleball. How about that?
That's right. Our other two brothers aren't playing pickleball
Not yet.
but no, they play tennis. Anyway, we come from a sports family, let's just say, and we play a lot of different games. And I wonder from your perspective what it's like in Southern California right now as far as pickleball and the growth. Since you're a tennis pro,
Right.
You must see it.
It is booming. I'm in San Diego, and one tennis center has added padel, which is booming now in California, and it's spreading east. My friend's club in Pennsylvania just added padel, but pickleball is an absolute explosion. Nearby club, I think, added to their maybe 20 courts, another like 20 or 30.
Oh my gosh. Designated courts.
Yes, and Carrie,
not the double lines.
Right. Carrie came down there and beat me. And that's what I thought. I cannot let this happen again. She's not beaten me in a racket sport in 30 years. So then I decided, how do I get Carrie back? And then you helped me.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to put a link in the description as to the video that we did with Mike. It was Instant Transformation. And that's the title of the video.
It was.
I've never seen anybody. I thought you were playing around with me. I mean,
Right.
You did 2 or 3 things that we suggested, and you were a champ and beat both of us.
Exactly.
So I need to put some of that footage on our channel as well, because that was really fun to see how much improvement with just a couple of little things.
It was like night and day. And from when I lost to Carrie, I remember telling her that I lost on like 3 or 4 serves in a row. So we cleaned that up. I found some targets, and I beat you too. We did a cutthroat type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we created the monster. And I have a great paddle. Thank you, Carrie. Product plug, my Babolat is great. I have Babolat tennis rackets, so I love that. But that was at the tennis center that I wanted to show her. And she had done a tennis coaching event there. And we saved the last day, not for tennis, but for pickleball.
Nice.
So we took a couple pictures after, but it was awesome just to be able to be on the court with Carrie. And I think we played tennis the time before that. So
maybe padel next time.
Padel is really, really fun. I played that originally in Argentina about 6 years ago. And then when it came to the United States, especially California, met with a Spanish guy, and he was trying to get the 3 courts more play.
Well, if you go back even further into our sports life, I'd say that ping pong was one of the games that the 5 of us played a lot, and you played against our brothers
Right.
as well for years on end. There was an endless game with a sheet of numbers on the wall. Actually, you wrote on the wall, and I think that's still there after many years.
We just recounted that with my brother Tom, and the endless games that we used to play. So the scoring systems of all of them are great. But I do still find pickleball confusing.
Pickleball is confusing, but let me go back to the ping pong. Roger Federer has called pickleball like a big game of ping pong. And I use that description for a couple of new students. Mm-hmm. And they came from ping pong and understood it a little better. Not necessarily the scoring part, but sort of what the court layout was. Right. And that the person who plays ping pong often understands spins.
Right.
Because there's a lot of strategy with that. So if it's a big game of ping pong or a small game of tennis, however you look at the court and your experiences, the game is enjoyable.
Right. So that was really interesting to hear Novak Djokovic talk about that at Wimbledon, saying that tennis is the grandfather. It's the grandfather sport that everything comes down to. And if you can do that, then you can do anything. I pick up a tennis racket first, and I'm good. Then I can translate that to ping pong. Though when I did try racquetball, and I coached a world champion racquetball player, she goes, "You're such a tennis player." Mm-hmm. My strokes were huge, and my backswing and the follow through. So the same type of tips that you and Carrie gave me to shorten things up, especially with the serve, was exactly what Jackie told me with my serve in racquetball.
Well, the size of the ball, the the surface of the ball, the size of the paddle or racket. I think now under the umbrella of all the racket sports is how they're trying to phrase it, so that you're hitting it back and forth, or as Carrie calls it, a send receive.
Right.
And when you do that, there's going to be advantages and disadvantages on all the surfaces or the playing field or whatever the scoring system is. So in pickleball, you can only actually score points for your total when you're the serving team. And then that goes into the volleyball days of before.
Right. Before
there was rally scoring. Now, really popular is the rally scoring in Major League Pickleball, in that format where you're going to play on the same side of the court. You're going to be a right court player and play only serving and receiving from that box, and then the partner does the other.
Oh, okay.
And so that becomes almost like picking sides of the court for tennis doubles. I'm not crazy about the rally scoring because I finally figured out the regular scoring. You might actually like rally scoring, which makes more sense because every point is a win for either side.
Right. As opposed to a side out.
Right. Like in ping pong, you're just going to score points every time. What I wanted to ask you about, Mike, because you are a tennis pro in Southern California, what is it like with pickleball coming into a tennis facility or a country club like you're part of?
Well, there's two things that I share with the pickleball courts and the tennis courts. As I'm pushing my basket out for a lesson, I pass by two full former tennis courts, which have been made into 4 each. So I've got 8 courts passing by. So the view that I get is a quick assessment of what court 1 is like, what court 2 is like. So being a tennis analyst, I can immediately size people up with their level on a pickleball court. Even though I'm not very experienced with pickleball, I've seen pros play and I understand what the subtleties are. I can tell by their grips and how they rally. And I think I mentioned to you that I just see a lot of power and smashing. And I like that because that's the fun part of tennis for me. But then when you both gave me some subtleties.
That was a wonderful tennis backswing right here. So what we're going to try to do, because it's a shorter court, 44 feet versus 78 feet. So let's get in your mind, it's going to be a shorter backswing, long follow through.
All right. Got it.
Let's go.
That's where I see a big difference with the pro pickleballers. They're getting in, and then they're very, very comfortable with the dinks until it gets to a crescendo, and then it gets to a very, very fast,
wild west, and they can run for everything.
Right.
They're so fast, they're so young, and just experience the entire athleticism of what pickleball brings,
right?
Which is exhausting if you're playing at my age, playing on a full court pickleball. I figure, how did I ever play full court tennis? But the ball's coming back and forth much quicker, and with the smaller paddle, it does feel like you're just, swinging wildly. Well, I read something the other day about keeping everything really quiet, and less movement is more movement for pickleball. So that the part of fun that you love in tennis, where you're running things down and you're just sort of, throwing your whole body into it, it's almost like you have to bring that part down,
right,
and just play in more almost with your head than your actual strokes, because I think people have made the assessment that pickleball is chess and tennis is checkers. I don't know if that means anything, but that must mean something to some people. So if anybody can tell me in the description what that means to you, is tennis?
Leave a link.
Yeah, that's right. Make a comment below. Is tennis like chess or checkers? Or is pickleball like chess or checkers? I don't know which one is which, but I don't know how to play chess, but I do play checkers, or have played checkers.
Right.
Not to mention Chinese checkers, and that's with little marbles.
That
so
would be like padel.
That's okay.
That would be a third thing. But I do find that it's mainly smashing the ball. And I'm like, okay, you can get to a certain level by that. But when I'm on court 4, then I see 3, then I'm passing by everybody. I'm like, that is a dink opportunity. That would be to be able to bring them in and then get them to pop up the ball, and then you can split the defense. And I'm thinking, lost opportunity.
Well, you remember in the old days, there were many famous tennis players who were very good at just getting every single ball back, no power, just returning every single ball.
Hi, Tracy.
Yeah, on the women's side, in professional tennis, I think of Andrea Jaeger, who was a teenager with the long braids and pigtails, and she just returned every ball with what they call the moon ball. It was a high, slow ball
with no gravity.
No gravity, and I think her longest rally was 30 minutes for one point. I think she holds that record or very close to it. And on the men's side, I would think of someone like Mats Wilander, who I don't think of him as an offensive player, but more of a defense player. So he was from Sweden and sort of in the style of Bjorn Borg, just
counter puncher.
Right. And so I know that those people would be very good pickleball players because they would understand what the dink would be to make someone go for too much. And you were talking about the length of the court earlier with me. What happens when they go for too much?
Right. It's always hitting out. Then they're
Always.
not missing by a little bit. They're missing by a lot.
Right. And if they hit the back fence in a tennis rally, which I remember that happening to a few of my opponents, they're certainly going to do that in pickleball. So that's called a let. When you let, it's good, a good let when you let it go out.
Okay.
And that means
that,
well, no, you're just going to not hit
just
a ball
let.
that's higher than
Got
your
it.
shoulder, and you're looking at the speed that is coming to you, knowing that the court is much shorter. You start to know which one's not to hit. So as your paddle is out there and you pull back, sometimes you actually hit it on the way back just because you can't get the paddle out of the way of the ball. So you've noticed a lot of people on the pickleball court.
Right.
You've seen a lot of. Do you have padel at your club or other close by?
Not that club, but another club nearby.
They have it at Justin Herman Plaza in San Francisco right now.
I just drove by
Did
that.
you see it? I
And
haven't
I
gone there yet.
videotaped it for my friend Ryan, and he says he knows those people, and I thought it was super cool to be able to do because that was a flashback to the original padel, which is outdoor like handball in like Venice Beach, where we played with a tennis net and the size of the short court in tennis and just a little bit like a reverse kitchen in pickleball. And I didn't know the rules, and I'm like, I'm confident I have a racket in my hand or a paddle or a padel, and I kept asking, well, what's the score? They're like, it's just like tennis. I'm like, oh, okay, it's familiar.
Then that easier, it might be a little easier transition.
That transition was pretty easy. The serve was very, very simple because it was just basically starting a rally with, let's say, an underspin or slice forehand or a pickleball topspin.
Now, I think I've seen some footage of Djokovic playing that game, and he looked very natural on the court.
Right.
But you showed me a video earlier, and I think I'm going to try to put it into our video, of Carlos Alcaraz and
Venus Williams.
Venus Williams. I was going to call her Venice Beach. And Venice Beach, Venus at Venice, playing pickleball, and they seem to be completely at ease. If you're going to take one person, put that person at the kitchen line or the non-volley zone line, it would be Venus Williams with her reach that she had on a full court size tennis court.
Right.
Pickleball, she would be outrageous.
There's no lobs for her.
And
that's
you're not going to lob against her. You're not going to lob against either one of them. The speed that Carlos has would be just magnifying what you see Ben Johns doing or Jack Sock doing. I mean,
right. What I did notice that what Venus and Carlos were doing was getting to the kitchen line right away. He would serve and then just get to the kitchen right away.
Well, on the return, he doesn't come right in after the serve.
Right.
Yeah,
but,
second bounce.
But what I see at a certain level of the club level, there's still one up, one back, that they just want to hit hard forehands back and forth, and they just wait for somebody to miss.
There really isn't a baseline game in pickleball. I think that you can get into a baseline rally in some singles, but the person that gets closest to the net has way more angle opportunity. And also you can just see them moving that person side to side. So it's not like where in tennis you are a baseliner or in the old days a serve and volley player. I do want to mention the sadness of the passing of Vic Satius, a tennis champion who was 100 years old, recently just passed away. And he was considered the fastest man to the net. I don't know if you read any of the articles about him. He really sort of was sorry to see the serve and volley go away, or that people could actually volley the way the old guys used to.
Right.
And I say it that way just with affection, just because that was a different style game. Now, even when you watch professional doubles, there is one up and one back on both teams. And I'm blown away. Now they can run to so many things and there's a different strategy altogether.
Right.
But pickleball really is all four up close, 7 feet from the net at that non-volley zone line. And sometimes they're inside the non-volley zone line, and sometimes they're running angles, and they can reach more shots than probably any other court game. because of the size of the same as a badminton court.
Right. Vic Seixas won Wimbledon mixed doubles 4 years in a row.
Oh, really?
So that is how to be able to get a so-called weaker partner to the equality part. They would never go up and back because of either the wooden rackets or the amount of power that they did have or didn't have, but being able to use the man's strength as an asset and the consistency of a woman at the net also.
Well, there's
And
more coverage when you're closer up.
Right.
That's what people also didn't understand. If I had one shot that I was going to hit, I'd be as close as I could get and just reach.
Right.
Where if you're back at the baseline, there's just so many more angles that you wouldn't be able to
Right.
cover. So to get those
So
mixed doubles partners to do that.
Well, that's the glaring error that I see at a lower level. I think it's rated like NTRP.
They have a couple
little
different
bit.
systems.
So I know the level, so I can see they're staying back. They're not getting to the net. They're not doing the short dinks. So I know that's a specific level because there's no subtlety in the game, in their game at a lower level. But then once we have our quarterly tournaments, then you see the more expert level, the subtle angles of a backhand to backhand rally. Let's keep doing this backhand to backhand to see who's going to win that battle.
And you can't judge a book by its cover. I've played with all shapes and sizes, all ages, and the people that you think, well, this person doesn't look like they're going to even be able to last out here, can beat you badly because they have the nuances of staying very still. Let's say there's a larger person staying very still, not having to run very much, and know how to hit it so that it's low by your feet and you're going to pop it up and they make a little put away. It is just amazing. Or by age, some of those patient baseliners now have joined pickleball and they really understand how to get you to miss the ball by giving you that soft shot that you will overhit. They're baiting you to hit that too hard a shot.
Well, it's getting the best out of what their skill level is.
Yes.
And what they like to do. So I taught an absolute beginner in tennis, and I went back to the first question. Now, do you like to hit it hard or do you like to run around? And he's maybe 13 years old, so a little bit late to the game as far as athletics. But he goes, I like to hit it hard. I go, well, I'm going to make sure that we do that today. So I think that would be what you talked about, getting your style.
Not only that, but based on your
what's style?
personality
Right.
and his interests were for sure. I think that's really good. And focusing on the strengths, because everyone can say, well, I want to be told what not to do. And I said, well, that's fine. But right now we're going to focus on what you do well, because you want to be able to come back, what you like to do. And that might be based on your personality. Never in a million years would I have been a baseliner in tennis.
Never.
So the net area for me is the reason that pickleball is so comfortable, because I enjoy that a lot. Other people want to stay back and then they're going to be off balance, or they're going to lob when they're back there,
Right.
but then you answer it with a big smash. And I think that's a good point of you want to match the skill types of shots with what they can do.
Ding, ding, ding. I think you should do a personality test. What do you want to do? Do you enjoy watching someone make mistakes?
Well,
can you miss? Or do you need to hit a winner to be able to satisfy your ego?
Well, I played with a very good player recently, and we were doing some practice the week before a sort of a fun fundraiser tournament. So it wasn't for anything but just sort of the pride. And
you won that.
I did. We did. And so before we got to the court, we did figure some things out. And I said, you're not going to change my personality and the things I like to hit but we're going to cover each other and know what the other one does well, because you don't need two players doing the same thing. You need people that can complement each other.
Right.
And that goes for any team sport, or that then you understand no one's also trying to make a mistake on purpose. So you brush it off and say, good try, and your partnership together where you're not going to be mad at your partner if they make an error, maybe even going for the best shot ever. And all of a sudden, when that pressure is off and you can see that people are complimenting each other well, or just have that same kind of drive of either if they're both sportsmanship or just competitive. It doesn't matter what the players' personalities are at that point. If they complement each other well, they make a very good team.
That makes me remember when I got my friend Alex to take me to the club where I lost to Carrie. And I said to Carrie, I'm not going to lose to another woman.
No offense.
Or my sister. So my friend Alex brings me out there. We're just going to play singles. She runs into a married couple that she plays with, and we decided to play. And I don't know how it got teamed up, men against the women, but it did. And my limitation of understanding the scoring kind of went into the man's idea of what my skill level was, stroke production wise. So I knew my inside out forehand was strong. He was trying to intercept it, and I said, that's not your ball. I may not know what the score is, but I know that's my inside out forehand. And our complimentary doubles did not work. We ended up losing. Congratulations, they were great. And then that made me even more excited to learn from you and Carrie my last visit.
Well, and I've been also reading a lot of people's ideas about who should take a shot. Now, your forehand probably would have been the right thing to hit, but if he were further or closer to the net, it might be his right away.
Right.
I mean, there's so many other factors besides.
He was pretty far back anyway, and I'm like, we're both really far away from the kitchen line.
Then the other one that I like to use is, well, I'm faster than you. I'm going to go get it first. So if I take it, that's mine. Good. And so there are so many little things that are the way that you decide, and it is not the old way of the forehand always takes it. But if you find that you're going to be making those shots, or this one drives me crazy, I would have had that had you not hit it. That is not really an excuse. That meant that you weren't there before that person somehow. Now, if you can work those out and not let the middle be the hole that the ball goes through, that's great. That's the whole idea of one person or the other to take it. I mean, they're not always going to be winners per se. It would be like, and this is sort of an analogy to basketball. Steph Curry is great from the three-point line, so he's far away from the basket. The way the game was played once upon a time with some of the older greats, like a Jerry West or whatever, even though he had a good jump shot, would be how close can you get to the actual basket to put the ball close in? So it has to go from one direction all the way up to the front. And that's sort of what the team effect is. It's not like you're passing it to someone, but if you can set up your net man when you're coming in with a good return or whatnot, that's the 1-2 punch or the Bert and Ernie, all those kind of things.
That's an interesting point where you see the professionals like Steph making those threes all the time, and the local gym type of basketball is now getting ruined. I hear, I don't play a lot of basketball because everybody's just trying for threes. So it's nobody's pressing, no one's trying to do layups. They're just all in a show trying to get threes. So if pickleball were able to do that and saying, here is how everybody wins at the best level, you move forward, you get your dinks, and then you find your opportunity from there. That hasn't happened yet, I think, on a mass level.
No, and in each game, there's not just one way to play, and it always evolves. If you can remember, in football, there used to be just the long bomb pass. You're the quarterback that just went for it, versus the running game, versus the just 5 feet out or 5 yards at a time. I mean, there's some teams that
or
were very good at
baseball
that.
with the long ball.
The same thing. So the glory shots in everything, the golf, there's not that many holes in one. And occasionally those aces
or
happen.
Bryson wants to bomb.
And so you'll see that then Tiger Woods comes in and hits the longest drive ever. And then other people do the copying thing. Because whoever is the flavor of the month, if that can be sustained, you're going to need some talent to be Steph or Tiger or whoever it is in pickleball or any other game. So there's not one way to play any game. I think the conversation really is, why are so many people playing pickleball? Because it has a very easy entry. And what do you see with the actual folks? Do they still play tennis and pickleball? Do you know some of these?
I see a lot go back and forth. Like the mom of the young boy that I was teaching tennis to, we're on pickleball. We'll see you in an hour. So that was a great way to be able to both enjoy the country club, get the son involved in a tennis 4-pack. Let's just see how you like it. Have you played other sports? Not really. Was my question, and what do you want to do with the sport? So I want to be able to get them to come back, and then they see what pickleball is like also, because the club is shared with obviously both.
Carrie shared with me a great story. She was teaching at a club prior to where she is right now in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and she said to her student, "Have you done any sports?" And she said, "Oh no, I've never done any sports, and I play the violin in the local symphony." Carrie says, "Wow, well, it's great. You want to get outside?" And she said, "I need some exercise. I want to be in a different world than just the music world. I want to experience nature and outdoor play." So she says, "Well, there must have been a game that you played." "Oh no, I never played any game." Carrie says, "Did you play dodgeball?" "Yeah, I played dodgeball when I was in 2nd grade." So all of a sudden this woman lit up because apparently she was a dodgeball champion.
Okay.
Or foursquare,
Right.
or jump rope, or you could find some
She peaked early.
That's right. Some kids' games that you played, whether it's kickball or anything, so that you get that sort of idea of competing, and it is for fun. Nobody's really, crying after they lose one of those games, but you can in all the racket sports, that's for sure. There's a lot of crying, and maybe not in baseball, but there is in racket sports. And I think when she equated those things that were so far in her past, it just sort of made her feel comfortable.
Mhm.
Oh, I can try this. This may be different than what I'm used to. The other day, I taught somebody who says, "Well, I'm not going to win today." That's okay. But we're probably just going to play a short game because I have to give you all the background
Mhm.
before we actually get playing, but we can do it in the first hour. And turns out she played ping pong, table tennis, and she understood a little bit more than she thought, and she was better than she thought. So she had very low expectations going in. And tennis players often have very
Right.
high expectations going in. I'm going to beat this person.
Right.
And you can until you can't. And you're comfortable because you're holding an object that you understand.
Right.
But once the ball is different, once the length is different, I mean, that's part of it. So it's playing a game, doing it for fun.
And enjoying a fast learning curve.
Very fast learning curve. And then the biggest problem is the amount of injuries. I quoted in one of our previous videos of how many have happened in the last couple of years, and majority of them are wrist. They're usually over the age of 50.
Shoulder, neck, knees, hips.
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's just hands.
No, but they were talking about fractures in this particular
Okay.
article. And then it primarily between men and women was more women. I mean, they had it all sort of statted out on one particular survey or study of sports. And it's because people also realize or don't realize how far the ball is from them. And they might be thinking like they did when they were on the school playground of how far a ball was and went for it with that same kind of gusto.
Right.
And no, I'm not quite that speed anymore. Or I'm not going to get that ball this time.
It's high gusto and low preparation.
Mm-hmm.
So I trained my friend Alex, the one who beat me in the women's versus men's. And when I shook hands with both of the ladies, they said, logic beat egos. And the logic of her not wanting an injury, wanting to play 3 hours at a time, and I train her as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go through this warm up. So we said, okay, let's go sideways for a little bit. Let's do forward bends.
She was prepared.
She was prepared, but she also started. She told me one day that she took that warm up to the pickleball court, and she got a hard time like you wouldn't believe.
Oh yeah.
Oh, look who's gonna try to win today. Look who's super
She
serious.
didn't want to get hurt.
And she said, Mike, I'm never gonna do that again. And I said,
Oh, in front of the other people?
Yeah, in front of the other people. And I said, okay, that's probably the worst thing I could hear as a trainer this week. That will lead to injuries. So, okay, what's the solution? You got to do it at home before you get in your car. Get out of your car, do a couple jumping jacks, and then you're re-warmed up. So that idea is slowly moving away as the injuries are piling up. So people are like, okay, so maybe a year later, Alex brings out some bands. Oh, what's that? So now it's a little bit more receptive because, yes, the year-long shoulder injury has been happening. I want to be prepared for this. Or people are getting their first flavors of tournaments.
Right, and you'll see a little bit more of that. Right, well, and then that's the actual athlete in them coming out and allowing that to happen. Or as Carrie and I would be waiting for a court, she would start doing her dynamic warm-up off the court. And the other people that are just waiting too are looking, what is she doing? But they have no idea. And so it sort of sets in their mind and they think, well, it's not taking away from their playing time now because they're not actually on the court. But for a lot of people, that's why pickleball players in general, and these may not be the competitive ones, but in general, just want to play. And there isn't a lot of drilling or practicing like a serve, like a basket of tennis balls for serving or a bucket of golf balls for the driving range.
Well, about 15 years ago, there was a new boom in table tennis.
Mhm.
And when Carrie gave me my first pickleball lesson, I think 2 years ago, she brought out a basket. I'm like, what? A basket of a ball of pickleballs? Is this a thing? And Carrie's really serious about learning the skill. And I'm like, okay, let's go along with it. So I was able to drill, and I immediately equated that to serving a bucket. If you want to get your serve better, how many balls are you serving today? Serve 50 balls, then you're done for the day. And then that happened when I went to New York City to a place called Spin. And it was a field of table tennis.
Wow.
With a basket of balls and a pro. And I'm like thinking,
With table tennis.
a table tennis pro. It was very popular on Entourage, and they featured it. And so I went, and they had bleachers for tournaments and a pro with a basket of ping pong balls.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It was an off time, so I wasn't able to play. But I'm like, that's something I want to be able to do. So you get that fun, and then you add a little bit of competition. You add what I forgot the show. Helen Hunt is on it, and she's playing pickleball.
Oh, I just saw it.
It was a song. So they want to get better in a competitive environment.
I just watched it.
And
I can think
she's very competitive, and they're like, I've never played before. And
no, I get
so using that,
answer that in the comments below if you can name the show. I'm gonna have to look it up.
I forgot, and she's very serious. And the networking aspect of now you are at the right place at the right time. Oh, it was Hacks.
Yeah,
It was
that's
Hacks.
right. That's right.
I won the prize. But as a networking event or as a social event, and now people are getting to a deeper dive with pickleball. Yes, it's recreation. Yes, it's a fun game. And if you want to go an offshoot, yes, I can play a tournament. No, I don't need to play a tournament. Or I can get my 3 hours of exercise. Or
Right.
I will count my steps.
Well, this week I saw Caitlin Clark, WNBA, the star from College Days, just played pickleball.
Reese Witherspoon.
Yes, we've seen a picture of Taylor Swift playing pickleball. I didn't
Swift.
actually see video, but she's playing. There's quite a few sports stars. Peyton Manning has played. He had a good shot against. Oh no, I'm thinking of who's the quarterback from
Mahomes?
No, quarterback
I think
from.
Mahomes played.
Maybe he has. I'm thinking of Drew Brees. Drew Brees did an Ernie against McEnroe. That means you run around to the side of the court and get really close to the net and put it
Well,
away.
I don't know where that was, but Drew is down where I am.
He was a junior tennis player.
Yes.
He played. He might have even had a win over Andy Roddick when he
That's
was
funny.
a junior. But obviously a very good athlete. So as the sports stars come into the game, they're going to make it more popular. Kevin Durant, formerly of the Warriors, we're Warriors up here in the Bay Area. He has, he's 7 feet tall, so his reach to the non-volley zone is one step, and he
or
does
a
well.
reach.
So, Jamie Foxx, the actor, singer, he loves it too. I mean, there's so many places that you can see the celebrities and people that we know from other parts of the world are joining pickleball too. So it becomes sort of like, well, if they can do it, it must be fun.
Well, competition without the pressure.
Yeah, you let up a little steam. You do get a good workout, and sometimes people have to play for hours before that happens. But it is that social thing that people have been missing, especially when we went through the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And it was safe because you were a certain distance away and you were outdoors for the most part. And so we're here today to encourage you just to try it. If you haven't played ping pong in a while, get out there and do that. If you have to bring out the old tennis racket, that's great too. We don't use white tennis balls anymore. Except
The grandfather sport.
That's right, the grandfather sport. Anything that you can get your body moving, we're all for. But obviously, we're sort of focused. I am now in my sports life in pickleball, and I've been using this expression for a while. I'll never be a better tennis player than I once was. I would have to go back to my college days, or maybe even in my early senior days at age 30. But I will be a better pickleball player, and that means that I'm using my brain too. Because as we're younger, we have a tendency just to use our brute force,
right,
and our natural skills. When you get older, you get to use your mind. And so the game of pickleball, especially where you can
craftiness,
put some shots together that sort of gives you an edge, watching your opponents with their body language, some of the sports psychology that Carrie and I hope to go into a little bit more in the next section of videos, because people are too hard on themselves. They also make a lot of excuses. All the things that can hurt you when you're playing competitively, we notice on the recreation court. So rec play is not the same as tournament play in all sports. But as people want to get into tournaments because they've had fun playing locally, and then you get a full array of new opponents built in. You got to pay a lot of money, though. Pickleball tournaments are not cheap. I don't know what tennis is these days. It can't be cheap either.
No, they're a big moneymaker for country clubs, and the events that I've seen get put on are in the hundreds of players.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting a huge entry times, hundreds of people with divisions, and the marketing aspect of how you're celebrated with the Olympic style podium of gold, silver, and bronze. You podium, you got placed. So it's not just leaving out that third place person, which 12 events, 15, 20 events, you get that 20 people, 40 people getting a medal, and then talking about it all week.
Right.
And then waiting for the next tournament.
Right.
So that's a great marketing aspect of pickleball, where Djokovic is saying tennis needs to do something. Padel is coming up. It's the same type of event where it's very, very social. It's condensed into a small area. Tennis, a lot of times, you get your can of balls and you're on court 12, way out there.
We were losing kids to soccer years ago, too, because there was a short length of time that you knew that the soccer match was only an hour, or 45 minutes, whatever the length is for the younger players. And so a parent could watch the game and still do other activities. In a tennis tournament, a junior player would have to spend all day. You don't know when the matches go on at a certain time. You don't know how long the ones before you are. And then you have to come back the next day. And it drags out. Now, we loved it because you'd play cards and hang out with friends. But nowadays, people want to have a short time to play. So you can play many games of pickleball in a short amount of time, though they end up playing for 3 hours. Like, well,
3 hours is 3 hours. It's not 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Right.
So you're not committed that entire day. And usually it's the morning, done by noon, and then you can get to do other stuff. You can go garden if you want.
And a couple of advantages I will say for the tennis players wanting to think about playing pickleball, because it takes a while sometimes. You don't just jump in automatically. The water is fine, though, is that there's no overhand serve. So anybody that has shoulder trouble or injuries in the past, either elbow or shoulder, underhand is much more doable. You only get one chance to hit it, but since it's underhand, it's not going to hurt your body. The court is much shorter. With one of my students last week, I showed her you can play the game walking. It really takes 4 walking steps.
It really does.
You do not have to run. So people say, and then if the ball goes over their head, it either goes long or you say nice shot. One of the two.
So there's not a lot of backwards running.
Hopefully not, because I think that's where the people who don't understand where their limitations may be until they're trained how to properly turn sideways or move for a ball in any direction, frankly. But those are 2 things that are good points. The bad point, Mike would tell you, is what's the difficult part for you?
Injuries.
Or the scoring.
Well, the injuries for what I hear about it. Oh, I hurt my shoulder, hurt my wrist. What am I willing to do about it? It's just a game, right? But my limitation is the scoring.
Yeah.
So
and for some people too. So I always say too, let your partner say it and then just repeat it. So you just have to speak the words, because most people get quiet and then they don't want to say it. The more you practice it,
well, I have no trouble asking, what's the score? What's the score? I do that in tennis anyway.
Right.
And I've gotten into trouble where my opponent is not calling the score. I know tennis scoring, and I've done it most of my life. But if they're not calling the score, I'm not keeping track.
Right, and you have to. That's part of the rules in pickleball. You have to call the score.
Right.
And so when you don't, Carrie and I were playing 2 high school tennis playing boys in pickleball a few years ago, and they weren't calling the score. And I said, now I know you guys think it's really cool, but if you don't do it again, we're going to take the point away. And we finally did, because they couldn't actually even speak words. So they were really top tennis players, but they did not want to call the score out loud.
Well, you won't lose track.
Right. And the points can go on much longer, so you will lose track. And even when you think you know the score, you can forget it because you're thinking about a previous point. It becomes really hard to remember. So out of the 4 people on the court, hopefully
one person knows how.
And if not, then you just call it out wrong, and then you keep going from there.
Or just say, and you keep track of it and just tell me where to hit it.
Well, and it's
So
funny.
that keeps me in my lane.
And sometimes you find this on tennis that there's always somebody who knows all the score and they call it out all the time for everybody. And tennis players,
Let 'em.
by and large, let them. That throws me off in pickleball. And the reason is because when I hear a certain person calling, it means something to me.
Right.
It means who's going to be serving next.
I'm a 1.
When this guy
You're a
is
2.
calling the score each time, he's very helpful for the people who are forgetful, but it doesn't help me with the rhythm of who's going to be serving next and all of that kind of stuff. It's sort of an unspoken thing, but that's after you've played for a while. And maybe I'm getting a little hypersensitive about that, but
no, you're not.
I felt like that was throwing me off. So then I had to concentrate more on what the score was and not rely on him, and then somehow make a point to let the person who's serving call it. You are allowed to have your partner call it for you. That is okay too.
Okay.
But I don't know if you can switch back and forth. I have to look at the rules on that.
Oh,
one.
here was the other thing that I noticed as I'm walking by is the score calling and the amount of time before they before they actually started. So a lot of people are talking, saying the score
Yes.
as they're serving, and I will stop the ball and then say, you need to call the score first.
It's a really bad habit.
There's a pause, and then you do it.
You can call people out on that, and that is sort of a bone of contention too, that they're supposed to call it before they serve. They get 10 seconds after they call it out, and they're calling it at the same time.
I had a boss who would cheat that way. We lost he beat me in a ping pong tournament at the club, and he would call the score as he's hitting, and he would say 9-11. I'm like, no.
Right. Well, then they had a couple of years ago, and the rules do change every year with sort of a voting kind of system, and what goes into the rule book for the next year has to be determined. The people from the pickleball committee, I guess. And if you questioned the score, you lost the point. So I thought,
Really?
what a great strategy to call a ridiculous score out, 900 to 400, and the person would have to respond, and then you won the point. So, I mean, you can actually do that by confusing them and making them upset. So I thought, this has got to go. So it's no longer in the rule.
It's a very strange rule.
Yeah, it's a very strange rule.
Good upgrade.
There's so many things that don't quite make sense, but as you start to incorporate that, it then becomes the way. But many people are not familiar with rules at all. And I say, if you have a hard time sleeping at night, go read the rule book. You will fall asleep right away. It's really sort of dry. And there's so much about if you're playing in a reffed game, like at a tournament, which some people are never, ever going to be in. But you have to know who can call it the ref. It gets so convoluted that I like when they just sort of put it into little capsule versions.
Detailed.
Capsule versions so that it can become, you can play with just knowing these rules.
Right.
You serve it cross court, diagonal, underhand serve, 1 chance, play to 11. You serve after your partner, except for the very first sequence, and there's 2 bounces that have to happen before you hit a volley. And then you go on to all the nuances of don't step in the kitchen. You can live in the kitchen. Carrie and I like to do that one. You can also let the ball bounce before you serve, called a drop serve, or hit it out of your hand on a fly, and both of those are legal. So they are legal, not illegal. They are legal and okay to do. But
I saw Carrie's video for that.
Carrie did a 5 bouncer. I'm going to put a link in the description with her 6 bounce serve, which people then are just going crazy. Is she going to even hit that thing? And then they get thrown off. And some players said, well, that's not a legal serve. I said, go read the rule book.
Look it up.
Look it up.
Google it.
That's right. Well, Mike, this was fun sort of catching up
Super
on
fun.
what's happening in our sports world of the racket world. The ping pong got into the conversation. I love playing ping pong. Carrie and I played in Mexico. I don't have a table right now, and I am desperate to get one just because I find that one, for your actual hand-eye and your focus, they say that the brain doctors say that's the #1 thing you can do. Pickleball is #2. Tennis is down the road because it takes longer for that
eye
ball to get
protection.
with eye protection. I probably would even do it in ping pong these days just because that goes flying.
You're a little bit further away, but
A little bit, but it goes really, I mean, that thing can sting.
absolutely.
But watching the top players, the Olympics are coming up. They'll have that event happening.
Table tennis is going to be absolutely amazing to watch.
So people ask all the time, is pickleball going to make it into the Olympics? Not this time around. It does require, I think, something like over 70 countries
Interesting.
for it to be played. And in Europe, padel is actually more popular than pickleball. It's the US where it's the fastest growing sport.
I'm not sure, but I think squash might be in or out for maybe
Oh, really?
LA. I don't know.
They've done some funny things with
racquetball has never been in the Olympics, but
Mm.
it's been Pan American Games.
Interesting. So we'll have to keep focused on that. See what happens in the news. They know they've taken away baseball and softball.
I think softball's back. It's
Oh,
really,
really?
it's really
Yeah, I
interesting
gotta keep
based
up.
on just interest, and I think the amount of countries that are doing it.
Yeah.
But I would say 2032 pickleball Olympics.
Oh, you think? Well, it could be.
bet.
I don't know if they have to have it as a primary. I mean, do they have to have a test time first?
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to find out.
Probably
Anyway.
let's have a vote.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, Carrie, we missed you on this conversation, but Mike and I got to catch up on all things pickleball and tennis and ping pong. So we'll see you soon. And
Always fun, Ann. Thanks a lot.
thanks a lot. We'll see you next
Thanks,
time.
everybody.
Take care.